Okay, so today we're going to be working with checkerboard, a checkerboard pattern. We're going to take some notes like this, and then we are going to do a final. I don't have my finished colored in, but we're going to do a final. It's like this, and then we'll have another final that we might not be able to finish this class period, but I'll have a video for you. So go ahead and open up your sketchbook. Put today's date. For today you will need your sketchbook, your thick marker, a T-square, and we're going to use the inside circle of this tape for our final optical illusion. And our final one, I cut up some nice thick extra paper that you can then tape into your sketchbook, but sometimes it's easier to do these on extra paper, especially the second one that we end up doing. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to use marker on everything just so you can see it better. You can use pencil for sure. Pencil is probably a better idea for you starting out, and then you can go in and color it in with marker so it stays better. So up here, I'm just dividing, making a little divider here. I'm going to put the date up here, whatever date it is, and I'm going to put checker. I want to leave some of this right here. Well, I'm just going to go and do it. Checkerboard. However you want to, I could put design. And this is for optical art, so OP optical art. Okay. So to start off, let's just learn, this is going to be a review for some of you. Some of you it'll be the first time. But let's make just a normal square. Now, if you really want to make things straight, you can start by using this now, your T-square or your triangle. Or you can just freehand it at this point. And we're going to make a series of horizontal lines. You want to at least make probably 4 spaces. Mine are a little uneven there, that's okay. And then make your verticals at least 3 lines, so it makes 4 spaces. Probably could have stopped on that one and cut it there, but that's okay. It's not a big deal if they're different sizes. So for a checkerboard, once we draw in our grid, we're just going to go every other color or every other square we color in. And we change that direction depending on which line it is. So it's easier to show you than to tell you. So we're going to start with a colored one. Color that in. Skip the next one. Color in this one. And then skip the next one. Okay, so down here, we're still going to go every other one, but we start the opposite of the line above us. So if this one was colored, then this one we're going to leave blank. This one we will color. This one will be blank, and this one will color. Again, next line, we do the opposite. So since we started blank on this one, we'll start colored on this one. Blank, colored, blank. Here, you can always, even though it's going every other one horizontal, it also goes every other one vertical. So colored in, blank, colored in, blank. This one would be colored in, this one would be blank, and this one would be colored in. And I can finish off my little squares there. Okay, so that's our basic checkerboard pattern. But we're going to do it some different ways. I'm going to teach you to kind of make it look like it's moving and different things. So somewhere below this, I want you to make, or you can do it on the side, wherever you want to do it. I want you to make a short line you don't know if it's short yet. Put a line in here, and then make a line that's long. Put a space and make a line that's long next to it. So it looks like that. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to connect the top of this line to the top of this line. If you want to use your triangle, you can to make a perfectly straight line. It always looks nice if they're straight, but right now these are just sketches. We're just learning. So if you want to freehand, you can. And then you connect the bottom of this line to the bottom of this line. So instead of making a square that's straight on like this, now it looks like the square is going like that. Okay. It's a little bit warped. So I want you to, about halfway on this square, I want you to draw a line going about halfway and just do it straight across. So when we're doing warped checkerboards, we always want to put a straight line in the middle. And then on the top side of the straight line, we're going to angle our next line the same as the outside edge of this. So since this is the halfway mark, this is the top part of this square, and because it's on the top part, I'm going to angle this line really close to the angle that I have here. Okay, and then below the halfway mark, I want to angle my line the same as this outer edge of the square. So I'm going to angle it down that way. Okay. So here, I'll just do a little review while you guys are catching up. Right here's my little version of it. I put a line halfway through, and then on the upper part, I put a line angling the same way as my upper square, and below the halfway, I angle going matching the bottom. Okay. If it was just a normal square, we would just keep all of our lines straight. But here we're angling this box. Okay, so we're going to start right here and make our vertical lines, a line that goes up and down. But as we make all of our verticals, we're going to put them a little bit closer together as we get closer to this short line down here, this shorter line. So here is my first square, vertical, my second one, and I'm going to just put them a little closer together as I go back. And why that is we're making this illusion that this is further away from us than this. When things get further back in space, they get smaller. So we're just really playing up that illusion right there, that this is going to be a checkerboard going back in space. But we color it just the same. So we're going to start with the first top square being inked, blank, inked, blank, inked. Okay, we'll leave that one blank, and then we skip to the second row. If this one was blank, we're going to leave this one blank because this one was inked, and we'll start to go the opposite. That one will be inked, blank, inked, blank, inked. And it should be opposite on all sides, meaning like if this one was blank, then it should have an inked one on all sides of it. Okay, so now let's skip down to the third. I started with a blank there, so I'm going to start with an inked, blank, inked, blank, inked, blank. Our last one, I'm going to leave it blank, ink it, blank, ink it, blank, ink it. And now instead of this going flat, it looks like it is going back in space, which is pretty freaking cool. Okay, so let's do one. Let's do one down here. Make a short line. And then a much longer line, put some space in between it, make a longer line, and then I want you to make another little short line on the other side of it. And you just want some space between those. It doesn't have to be the same exact space or anything like that, just some space between those. Okay, you can use your triangle or not. I just use mine to make it look extra cool. And I'm going to connect the top of this line to the top of this line, just like we did before. And I'm going to connect the bottom of this line to the bottom of this line. And now I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to take the top of this line and connect it to the top of that line. And I'm going to take the bottom of this line and connect it to the bottom of this line. So that's going to be your shape. I'll do it again while you guys are catching up. I'll do it again like a small little version here. Short, long, short. Top of this one that way, bottom of this one that way. Top of the line to the top of this line, bottom of the line to the bottom of that line. Okay, so before we start our checkerboard, we always start about halfway in the middle. So find about close to your halfway mark. It's about right there. Doesn't have to be perfect. And we're going to draw a straight line going all the way across both sections. So there's that straight line, making kind of a cross in the middle of it. Put that over there. So, because this is our halfway, we're going to put a line just in this section. Just look at this side, don't look at that side over there. Just in this section, we're going to make a line that matches, is parallel to the outer edge of that box. You can use your triangle or you can freehand it. I should have freehanded it, but that's okay. It's a little high. Don't listen to me when I say those things. And then here below the line, I'm going to angle it this way to match, to make it parallel to this outer edge of your box. Okay. So I went boom right there to match that one, and my bottom edge is like there, so I want to make that line almost parallel there. Okay, so we're going to do the inverse, the opposite of that on this side. So I look, here's my halfway mark. Here's the outer edge of my shape. So I'm going to make it parallel, the same, but I want to connect it to this one right here. So I'm going to angle it down this way. And just remember that if this is confusing, it's because you're just learning it. Once you practice this a couple times, you're going to get it. Trust me, everything you learn in the beginning is a little bit confusing. So give yourself that learning curve. I'm going to skip down here. It's below the halfway mark, so I follow this edge because it's the edge below the halfway mark. I'm going to connect it to this one. Go about halfway. When you use a ruler, you always want to measure a little bit lower than your line, because the line that you want, because it bumps it up a little bit when you use a ruler, if you can see that. If that doesn't make sense, you'll understand what I'm talking about one of these days. And then here I'm above the halfway, so I match my outer edge this way, and here my angle goes like that, so I'm going to match it down like that. I'm just doing this little one just to show you some variance and to give you some time. Fill it in. Okay, so same thing. We're going to start with a normal square, and then as we get further back, we're going to make our vertical lines closer together. So here's my first line. I'm going to move it back just a little smudge closer together, a little bit closer. Looks like it's already going back in space. I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. So here's my vertical. And I'm not measuring these, you know. That's okay. If you want to be really exact, you can measure them, but you don't have to. I wouldn't, personally. And this is much smaller, so I won't have as many verticals. Okay, so we're going to start coloring at this end. Some people, when there's more squares, they want to go through and mark their squares before they start inking them. And so if that works for your brain, definitely do it. And what I mean by that is I always start inking the very first square. It kind of grounds me out. It sets me where I need to be. And then if you want, you can go through and mark your squares. Now for right now, I'm just going to stay on this side. So if I mark, I'm going to do those. I can mark this one, I can mark this one. In some weird way, that messes with my head a little bit, so I usually just ink as I go. But I know a lot of people want to mark them, especially on big, big, complicated ones. And for right now, I'm just going to stay on this side. Another little trick when I'm doing a lot of checkers is I'll move diagonal. Now just ignore, this could confuse some of you. I don't want to confuse you, but you can pick a diagonal and just ink them all. I feel like that's confusing. So it means like ink, ink, makes a diagonal line. And you can do it that way. Sometimes that's easier for me. If that doesn't make sense, just ignore it. You'll stumble upon it someday. But the way that normally people do it is they either go horizontal or vertical, and they skip every other one. So here, I was inking kind of funny and talking, so my brain needs to stop and think. This one's inked, this one's blank, so this one would be inked. Okay. So while you guys are filling that in, I'm going to fill this in and talk about two different ways you could do your cube. So one way to do this cube is to think that here we have a blank and that this side would also be blank because it's the same cube kind of stacked up. This is one side of it, this is another side of it. That way probably makes more sense, but it doesn't look as dramatic as switching. So let me see if I can show you here in this little guy. So that means if this one's inked, this side would be inked. If this one's blank, that side would be blank. If that one's inked, this side would be inked. Blank, blank. So that's one way you can color them in, and it looks kind of like that. It's little, so it might not look as good, but it gives you that idea. Personally, I don't like that look as well as when I switch and go every other one on the opposite side. So what I mean by that is if this one is blank, when I switch here, I'm going to go ahead and color this one. So I didn't mean to complicate that at all, but there's just two different ways you could do it. You know, you could make this read like one cube and keep it blank on both sides. I like to go opposite on both sides because it just plays with the eye a little bit more. It makes it more dramatic. So if it's inked in here, it would be blank here, inked here, blank, inked. It's blank, it's inked, blank, inked, blank, inked. And last but not least, we got a blank one, we got an inked one, we got a blank one, an inked one, a blank one, and an inked one. Looks pretty cool. Yeah, I really like it when they change every other one. I think it looks much better. And so that is playing with perspective. We're making that look like it's going back in space that way. And the optical's really starting to already happen, which is awesome. But these are all geometric shapes. Geometric shapes have straight lines. They're very predictable. Let's go and do an organic shape. So for this one, I want you to make some kind of lumpy, blobby, organic shape. Doesn't have to be that intense. In fact, I'm going to do 2 different ones. You don't have to do 2 different ones, but I just want to show you the difference. There's a couple different ways you can do this. Okay, so this might be more the shape you want to start with. You can put some different curves on it. Just want to make it a little bit curvy. But we're still going to start out by splitting it in half. Well, it's a little weird on this because it's not even, but halfway would probably be about right here. And instead of making it just super straight across, oh wait, stop. Let me do this first. I'm going to skip that halfway thing on this one. So if you put in a halfway mark already, that's okay. It's no big deal because you're using pencil. But I'm going to start on this, and I'm just going to start here, and I'm going to follow that curve that I made. And I'm just going to repeat that. I'm going to follow the curve, I'm going to follow the curve. And down here, I'm going to keep following that curve, but it's going to kind of get lost. Pick it back up, and then here I'm going to follow that curve, follow that curve. When I say follow that curve, I'm talking about the curve that I started out here, and I'm just kind of repeating that all the way down. Okay, now this is going to be roughly my halfway mark, using it in pencil, just to kind of pencil it in there. And on this side of the halfway, I'm going to follow, see this outside curve here? I'm just going to repeat it. Instead of making a straight vertical line, I want to curve my vertical line. So I'm going to curve it, curve it, curve it. And here in the center, I'm going to kind of start, maybe straighten it out a little bit. And then I'm going to start curving it the opposite way. One way I do this so I can keep my brain straight doing it is I'll jump back here to the side over here, and I'll always look at this outer edge, and since it's curved this way, another way you can do this is, just for the grid, is here would be about my halfway mark here, and there's about my halfway mark there. So above that halfway mark, I'm going to follow the top line and curve it, curve it. That one goes a little underneath, that's okay. And then on the bottom side of that halfway mark, I'm going to follow this curved line. And I could draw, sure, I guess I'll draw another one there. And so now, instead of curving it all the way down, following one line, I kind of switched them. And below the halfway mark, it follows the bottom edge. Above the halfway mark, it follows the top edge. Just a different way to make a warped grid. This is my halfway here. So on this side of my halfway, I'm going to follow this curve. And the more curve you have, the more dramatic it looks. Start straightening out a little bit. There's my halfway mark. And then on this side of the halfway mark, I'm going to curve it this way. It just changes the way of that warp. It's a little more dramatic if you change your lines following the edge than if you go all the way through. And now, we just want to ink it. Maybe this is a place where you really do go with a little pencil and mark, like, okay, colored, inked, colored, inked, colored, inked, colored, inked, colored, oops, blah, 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 blank, inked, blank, inked, blank, inked. It's the same pattern as doing a real square. It's just a little bit more complicated to follow because it's curved. So if I started inked here, this would be blank, inked, blank, inked, blank. And some of you are going to find it really monotonous, meaning boring to fill all these in. But if you get into it, it can be very meditative. They say drawing is more of a meditation than sitting and breathing. That if you really put yourself into a drawing, that your brain's going to start releasing those same hormones as you are when you're meditating, which is really cool. So, okay, this was blank. That one was inked. Sometimes I have to look at the diagonals to see, because all those are inked. Sometimes I have to match it up with what's around it, just to get back on my groove. Inked, blank, inked, blank. Okay, so we're going to spend some time filling those in. Maybe you have one, maybe you have two. I do want you to finish filling them in, even if it's with pencil, to get full credit. You don't have to be the neatest, you know, but I do want you to have that feeling of satisfaction of finishing a little object. Every time you finish something and you see the results of it, it releases dopamine in your head, which is the happy. It's our little happy drug that our head produces, and we want to release that. The more you finish things, the more committed you'll be. So I'm kind of messed up here. That one was inked, so that would be blank, inked. I don't recommend talking while you're doing this, like I am. Blank, inked. And this is kind of where I screwed up before. I'm just going to leave it. And then this one would be inked, blank, inked. Looks pretty cool. And it would look even cooler if I had made those bigger curves, you know. So we're going to spend some time coloring those in, and this will be the last of our notes, and then we're going to go ahead and make 2 optical illusions. I'll do an extra video or separate video for those. Did I mess it up? Nope. So if that one is inked, that would be blank. This one would be inked. Blank, inked. Blank, inked. So, you know, part of drawing and training, like I've talked about, you're training your eye and your hand and your brain, but you're also training your patience. You know, drawing takes a lot of patience. Art takes a lot of patience. It takes time. So many of us move so fast, especially, you know, that we don't slow down to do something that takes time like this. I mean, think about all the TikToks and everything that you watch. It's super fast. The speed is fast, and so our brain gets kind of addicted to this fast-moving life or looking at information super fast. Again, drawing slows that down, and it's training you to slow down, to commit, to get that feeling of being really focused on something and meditative. And if this is hard for you, it'll get easier the more you work at it. I promise you, you're a healthier person if you make time to slow down and use your brain in creative ways. I promise you, you'll see benefits from that. It's absolutely true. So up here I kind of lose that a little bit, but I just check with this one was blank, then this is going to be the inked one. And come back down here, this one is blank, so this will be the inked one. And really what feels like a long time is just a couple minutes. Not that long. And then we have this wonderful sketch. Looks super cool. Super, super cool. Okay, let's move on to our final optical illusion.